Peace, was good? Welcome to another hip hop album review. This is part 53. The album I will be reviewing today is Ice Cube's second album, Death Certificate, released in 1991. You guys should know who Ice Cube is. You know, he was an ex-member of NWA. He was part of a group called CIA and stuff like that before he became a member of NWA. You know, they had a falling out, blah blah blah, and so forth and so forth. I did a review on his first album, America's Most Wanted, released in 1990, and I did a review on Predator, The Predator, that was released back in 1992. I don't have Lethal Injection. I do want to get it, but like for me, for some reason, it's hard to find over here, like where I live at. I had the chance to buy it years ago, but I never got around to it because I know it's always gonna be there. But that's what I get for not getting it as soon as possible. It's one of those things. But I know it's not that hard to find. I just gotta look deeper. So whatever. Dope album cover. You see Ice Cube chilling in the morgue. You see like a fictional Uncle Sam. It's supposed to be Uncle Sam, but it's just like a regular John Doe. Let me open this up. What's cool about this is that if you see closely right here, you see an official Californian death certificate. You see, like, you know, what the coroner's got to, you know, write, you know, the cause of death, the race, you know, all that crazy shit. You give me 1 second. I'm trying to open this shit up. If you open this up right here, you can see the poster for the you can use this as a poster if you don't want to use the album insert for anything. You don't want to keep it in the CD case. You can use this as the album poster in your wall or whatever to make your room look cool and shit. Pretty dope. See, you know, Ice Cube chilling right here, and you can see, you know, Ice Cube, you know, chilling with the Nation of Islam, because at this time, like, you know, he's joined the Nation of Islam, although he said that he denies having an affiliation with them, but I don't know how it is, but he is Muslim. He converted to Islam around this time, so you see, you know, you see Ice Cube chilling with his boys and shit like that. Pretty dope. And pretty other pictures, you see Ice Cube here, you know, mean mugging as usual and stuff like that. Alright, pretty cool, pretty cool. Put this shit right here. Singles is almost known for. Came out with 3 singles. First single was Steady Mobbin'. They have a video for that. Second single, True to the Game, pretty dope song. And No Vaseline, which was the last single, but which had no video for it. You know how I get down. I'm gonna break down some of the songs. You know, break some of the songs down to what the songs means and all that good stuff. First song, The Funeral, which is just like a skit, it's like the intro to the song, sets the theme sets the tone of the album and stuff like that. Oh, but before I start with that, sorry, the deaf side, pretty much based on what I've been researching, on interviews that Ice Cube's done, the deaf side is pretty much the fucked up shit that's going on, like motherfuckers drug dealing, you know, prostitution and corruption and shit like that. It's pretty much shit that, you know, motherfuckers that's mentally dead, you know what I mean? And that's what I got from that. And the life side is like, you know, shit that you should be going towards to, like, you know, trying to make your life go better, you know, to be aware, you know what I mean? And I kind of feel like Ice Cube gets the notoriety of him being a gangster rapper. Yeah, he is, but at the same time, I always saw him as a conscious rapper because, you know, he always threw, like, you know, political slurs and stuff. Like, he always had a political side to him, but, you know, people kind of like overlook that, overshadow that. You know, just people just picture Ice Cube as a gangster rapper, but they just never see his political side of things and stuff like that. Not to mention, he's a dope storyteller, and I think people kind of overlook that side of him, of Ice Cube. But like I said, let me get through the songs. Moving on. Like I said, The Funeral is just you know, it's like a skit. You know, it's an intro. It's just like you know, it's just you know, it sets the tone of the album and stuff like that. Second song, which is the first song of the album, The Wrong Nigga to Fuck With. Pretty dope song. It's self-explanatory. Don't fuck with him, or, you know, you'll handle you, handle his business, with you and shit like that. Third song, My Summer Vacation, is a pretty dope song. It's pretty much about him and his Ice Cube and his crew. They have the reputation of being like one of the illest drug dealers in L.A. and shit like that. But they have too much heat on them. You know what I mean? So it's like cops are always on top of him. So you know what they do? They how they do. They lay low. They lay low. Him and his crew went to East St. Louis in Illinois or Missouri or whatnot, and they go in a motel and stuff like that. They set up shop and shit like that. And you know how it is in the drug game, like, not that I've been in it, but it's obviously if you live in the hood or if you watch movies or whatnot, there's always competition. It's just like with everything else with business. It's like, you're gonna try to eliminate the competition. So, here's these dudes from LA going to somebody else's hood, trying to set up shop, trying to take away the competition. These dudes from East St. Louis is like, yo, what are these out of towners doing here? We're gonna go see them, we're gonna go check them, like, yo, what you doing in our block? You know what I mean? And, they get into beef and stuff like that, and, his summer vacation is not what it was cracked up to be, you know what I mean? So, they go into the beef to war, gun war and all that, drug war and all that shit, and you know how that gets down after that. That's what I got from My Summer Vacation. And matter of fact, I think that's where they got the storyline for Trespass, because if you notice, if you watch Trespass, it has Ice Cube, Ice-T, Bill Paxton, and all those other guys. That took place in East St. Louis, and Ice Cube and Ice-T being West Coast rappers, it's kind of coincidental. So I think that's where they got that storyline from, or the influence of that movie, of the location and stuff like that. So although it was like a little twist, like making Ice Cube and Ice-T, East St. Louis natives and stuff like that, like the movie. But I thought that would be, I think that's where they got that, the plot from and stuff like that. Next song, Steady Mobbin', pretty dope. That was the first single off the video of the album. Steady Mobbin' is just him talking, braggadocio shit and stuff like that, braggadocio lyrics, nothing to it. Robin Lynch as a skit. Number 6, Giving Up the Nappy Dugout. It's pretty much a girl named Cheryl, who's a girl that goes to Catholic school. The stereotypes of Catholic girls, girls that go to Catholic school. They live in they live in like, strict religious households. They're not allowed to do anything. A lot of those girls are very sheltered, but when they get that freedom, they go all out. So, in other words, this girl named Cheryl, who becomes a hoe. When she gets, any opportunities she gets, man, she's just giving up the pussy and shit like that. She's a hoe, she sleeps with a whole bunch of dudes. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, it was a little bit too loud. But yeah, it's just like, the girl that's sheltered, she gets that freedom and stuff like that. She lets all loose, she just becomes a whole, doing what she gotta do, you know what I mean, just to get that. And pretty much, and that was pretty much the whole storyline of the song, Giving Up the Nappy Dugout. Matter of fact, if you watch the movie Juice, that scene where Samuel L. Jackson was talking to his boy and shit about how his boy was trying to sleep with some girl and shit like that, but the girl was fronting and shit. So she wasn't trying to give up the nappy dugout. Sorry, but she wasn't trying to give up the goods, her jewels, her pussy and shit like that. And when he said trying to give up the nappy dugout piece, you know what I mean? And that's what they were talking about. And I think that's where he got that term from, was from this album. Or I don't know if that was like an old term from the 70s or something like that. So who knows? Somebody informed me of that. I'm pretty sure that's like from the 70s, but one of my subscribers that, or somebody that comes to hold this video, let me know about that term. Number 7, Look Who's Burning, pretty dope song. What's cool about that song? Well, I see it as like a sexual awareness song, where it's pretty much about Ice Cube. He goes to a free clinic, to a clinic, where they test people for like AIDS and venereal diseases and shit. And he just so happens to see his boy getting a physical, because when you get a job, when you get a new job, you have to do a physical. You have to get a blood test, piss test, and all that crazy shit. He's like, yo, I'm here for a physical because that's what you gotta do. When you get a new job, it's like, oh, I bet. So what you doing here? I'm just here getting a physical as myself and stuff like that. It just so happens Ice Cube was messing with a girl, a hoe and shit like that, and he was burning and shit like that. So like he told the clerk what was his problem and shit like that. It just so happens that clinic that he went to doesn't do physicals like that, those type of physicals. So like he's just suffering, man. I think he had like chlamydia or syphilis or whatnot. And anytime he sees this girl that he fucked, she's trying to give the nigga attention, but it's like nah, fuck you, get away from me, you burnt me and shit like that. So, and it's just like the clerks, the hospital clerks making fun of him because he got burnt and shit like that. So that's what I got from this song. It's pretty dope. A Bird in the Hand, track number 8, A Bird in the Hand, pretty dope. It's pretty much a dude. It's pretty much Ice Cube saying like how he graduated high school, and like graduated out of high school, what you gotta do. You gotta go look for a job. You turn 18, you become a grown man, and he pretty much he applied for AT&T. They wasn't really trying to give him a time of the day and shit like that. So what does he do? He tried to find an easy way out. Goes to a drug dealer. He's like, yo, I want to put in work. So he gives the drug dealer gives him a bird to flip, which is a kilo, for terminology terms and stuff like that. A kilo of coke and stuff like that. And hence name A Bird in the Hand. So he's there doing his thing, selling drugs, living a fast life pretty much. That's what I got from this song, A Bird in the Hand. And what's interesting, a little trivia too, for my fans of Boys in the Hood, or for people that have seen the movie, the scene where Trey, Cuban Gooding Jr. is coming from the barbecue, from Doughboy's barbecue, Ice Cube's character, his house. He's going to his house and stuff like that. He's carrying his barbecue. You see, a drug dealer, Ferris, and stuff like that. And you see this like Chris Tucker looking dude with a shotty, with double pump shotgun and shit like that, pointing at Trey and shit like that. And the song playing in their car was Bird in the Hand by Ice Cube. So I thought that was a little trivia that I threw to you guys and stuff like that. Next song, A Man's Best Friend, pretty dope song. It's pretty much talking about man's best friend, because we already know that a man's best friend is a dog, you know what I mean? But in this case is a gun, you know what I mean? And there's a line, I think, where he says, don't let me pull out my dogs and let them run after you, some shit like that. I don't know if that's what he said, but it's like, I'm just paraphrasing what he said. But it's pretty much like, kind of like where Pharoah Monch's or Organized Confusion's Straight Bullet, or Tupac's Me and My Girlfriend, or Ice Cube, Nas's I Gave You Power. It's kind of like Ice Cube's version of that, you know what I mean? So if you want to be technical, Ice Cube was probably like the first one to use that as using like a metaphor for a gun and shit like that, but like in a different metaphor, you know what I mean? But the way Pharoah Monch does it, to me, I think he did it the best though, in my opinion. Go check the song Straight Bullet by Organized Confusion. You'll see what I'm talking about. Alright. Next song, Alive on Arrival. Give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that. Alive on Arrival, pretty dope song. It's pretty much about Ice Cube and his boy and shit like that. They doing what they do, flipping birds and shit like that. They chilling and shit like that. And until one day, their rival crew and shit like that. You know how it is in the drug game. You're always gonna have competition. You're always gonna have enemies and shit like that. and you know they ambushed him and his boy and shit like that. I think his boy got shot, but then Ice Cube ran away. You know what I'm saying? But then what he didn't realize is he got shot too. But then it's like he sees his boys and shit like that. And he's wondering like, yo, why am I tired and shit like that? And he looks down at his shirt and it's like, yo, he realized he's bleeding. He got shot, excuse me. And he's going to his boys and shit. He's running towards his boys and shit, but he falls, he faints because of the gunshot. And then after that, he goes out. I mean, he goes to the house. He gets to the hospital and stuff like that. You know how it is in certain hospitals, like county hospitals. They're very notorious for being, well, hospitals in general, especially in the emergency room. You guys know that, you know, they take forever to see you and shit, because there's a lot of people trying to get help and shit like that. So he was saying that he waited so long that he saw 2 episodes of MASH, which was like was a sitcom back in the 70s, like that took place like in the Vietnam War or like I think like the Korean War or whatnot. And he said he saw 2 episodes of that, and by the time he got there, you know, he passed away because from the gunshot wound. It's like yo, I saw 2 episodes. He saw 2 episodes of MASH, and then by the time they got there, I was Audi 5000, because you know when that's the terminology. I'm Audi 5000. I'm out. You know what I mean? So by the time I got there, I was Audi 5000, which means he died. He passed away. So pretty sad. It's pretty fucked up, but that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. Track 11, Death, is just like a skit. That's it for the Death side. Starting track 12 is just the beginning of the life side, like I said before. The Birth, is a skit as well. Track 13, I Want to Kill Sam. I want to say you want to kill Uncle Sam. It's pretty much about how in the first verse he talks about how there's an army recruiter that goes to Ice Cube's house, and then you know how the government is, man. Like as soon as you turn 18, you got the armed forces coming to your house, or you know they call your phone saying like, yo, I understand you turn 18, blah 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 blah. I understand you turn 18. You know, it's your duty to join the forces and stuff like that. But in this case, they came to his house and shit like that, and you know, trying to get him to persuade him to go into the army and shit like that. And he, you know, the army recruiter came to his house, spoke to his mom, saw Ice Cube, and then the army recruiter fucking pulls out a gun, fucking ties up Ice Cube, throws him in the paddy wagon with a whole bunch of other people tied up, and the army recruiter raped his mom and shit like that. And in the second verse, Ice Cube is in the armed forces in the army and shit like that. It's like, yo, I'm gonna kill Uncle Sam because this is how it is. Like, yo, I don't like this shit. I want to get out. Blah blah blah. It's like, yo, if I see Uncle Sam, yo, I want to kill him and shit like that. Pretty much that was like the second verse and shit like that. And that's what I got from that song and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool. Track 14, Horny Little Devil. It's kind of a very racist song. You gotta understand, around this time, Ice Cube, he had just joined the Nation of Islam. So, you know, their mentality is like, you know, the white people being the devil and shit like that, which I don't really agree with that, because I'm all for people, you know, races and creeds, because there's assholes in every race. There's asshole black people, there's asshole black people, asshole white people, asshole Spanish people, asshole Indian people, asshole Asian people, whatever. You know how that is. But it's pretty much he talking about white guys falling in love with black girls and saying like, yo, I'm tired of white guys, you know, stealing our women, black women and shit like that, things like that. You know, pretty much. So you can see in this song, you know, he's not for interracial relationships and stuff like that. Me personally, I don't give a fuck. Because me personally, if a girl loves you for who you are, regardless of race, that's what matters, you know what I mean? So that mentality is dead, it's stupid, you know what I mean? Gets you nowhere in life. But that's Horny Little Devil, that's track 14. Track 15, Black Korea. It's kind of an interlude, it's a song, but it's like a short song. Black Korea is pretty much, it deals with, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, you know, pretty much back in the day, um, Koreans Koreans were owning a lot of the bodegas in the hood in California or in the West Coast, and especially like in California, a lot of Koreans. It's kind of like how in New York, the bodegas are owned either by Arabs or Dominicans or Puerto Ricans or even some Cubans. But in this case, in California, in the West Coast, they owned a lot of them are by either by Koreans or by Arabs. Anyways, there was a lot of racial tension between the Asian community, and the blacks, and you know, there would be times where, you know, Ice Cube would just go to the hood, just go to the bodegas just to catch a brew, to, you know, buy a 40 or whatnot. But then they always get followed and shit like that. I can relate to that, you know what I mean? And just followers like, yo, hurry up and buy and shit like that, you know what I mean? It's like some bullshit, you know what I mean? And then Ice Cube's saying like, yo, not all black people are, you know, not all black people want to steal from you. But then it's like, at the same time, it's like, yo, you have your business in the hood. I mean, what do you expect, you know what I mean? That's not to say all people from the hood steal and shit like that, but the neighborhood that you're in is a very notorious neighborhood, so it's to be expected, you know what I mean? But I just wish that whole racism shit just died, because you get nowhere in life with that, you know what I mean? And that's what I got from that video, for that song. Matter of fact, it kind of reminded me of the scene with Old Dog and Kane, in the first scene of Menace to Society, where they getting a 40 whatnot, you know, stuff like that, telling like, yo, hurry up and buy and shit like that. And then, you know, the clerk says, I feel sorry for your mama, and you know how that gets down, you know how that went down. You know, Old Dog just went crazy, shot up the whole place and stuff like that, and crazy shit like that. Next song, True to the Game, which was the second single of the album. It's pretty much about, to make it long story short, he's tired of black dudes acting white and shit like that, acting like Oreos and shit like that, you know what I mean? Which I think is fucking stupid. I see what he's saying, but it's stupid because not all black people grew up in the hood, you know? If you grew up in the suburbs, you're gonna gravitate, you're gonna act, you know, you're gonna be a product of your environment, you know what I mean? But like me, I grew up in the hood, but you know, I don't act all bougie and shit. I'm not ghetto. I mean, yeah, I talk with slang, but you know, I know how to carry myself. It's all about where you grew up at. It's like how you was raised and how you grew up and shit, you know what I mean? So, and that's what I got from the song. And then, you know, like he talked about, you know, black people acting white and shit like that. And he also talked about how people, niggas in the game just like, you know, switching the states, their whole steez up, you know, like, you know, you was a hardcore MC and shit like that, but then you switching up to them whole mainstream side of things like that, you know, you rapping out about girls and, you know, things of that nature. And that's what I got from the song, True to the Game. So it's kind of relevant today, but at the same time, some of the stuff that he was talking about as far as the racial shit, you know, I don't really agree with that, because like I just said before. Next song, Colorblind, track 17, pretty dope song. You know, it deals with the whole Bloods and Crips shit, like how you know, it talks about how in the hood, especially in LA, the gang culture is really big, is really strong out there. You can't go to certain hoods if you wear certain colors and shit like that. But Ice Cube, he's neutral, you know, he goes to the hood, he wears whatever, but I'm colorblind. I don't see that, you know. There was a line where he says like there was a gang member that pulled up right against his car because they were at a red light. And you see a gang member looking at Ice Cube and he's throwing up signs and shit like that. But Ice Cube's like, yo, I don't see that, I'm colorblind. You know what I mean? So, and that's what I got from that, you know what I mean? Saying like, yo, that whole gang shit is stupid, because like it gets you nowhere in life. Like it either gets you in jail or either gets you in jail or it gets you 6 feet under. You know what I mean? And that's what I got from that song. Track 18, Doing Dumb Shit. It's pretty much about, you know, Ice Cube, you know, the shit that he did when he was younger. You know, when he was like 6 years old. You know, shit that boys would do, you know, just like looking up girls' skirts and shit like that. But in this case, he's talking about, you know, filling up on girls' asses and shit, little girls' asses and shit when he was young and shit. Ice Cube pulling their fucking hair braids and shit like that. He said when he turned 13, when he started getting pubic hair in his in his area and shit like that. He started experimenting with girls and stuff like that. Fucking girls and stuff like that. And then when he got to 17, 18, he just continued doing that. But then he started doing like robberies and stuff like that. Selling drugs, doing dumb shit like he said before. And then the message of the song, he was like, yo, you keep doing dumb shit, it's gonna get you either in the front page or 6 feet under. You know what I mean? And that's what I got from that song, doing dumb shit. Track 18. Track 19, Us. Pretty dope track. I really like that song a lot. It's pretty much about, he talks about the black community, the problems in the black community, how black people, we're our own worst enemy, which I do agree, because for example, like I'm of Haitian descent, and if you're Haitian, you get laughed at, especially people from different cultures. Like let's say like for example, like if you're Haitian here in America, you get laughed about. You get cracked out, you get clowned and shit like that. But that's slowly changing. You know what I mean? It's not like it used to be. They're finally embracing Haitians, but it's still that stereotype that all Haitians do voodoo and all that. But anyway, I'm getting a little off topic. But it's funny, he talked about black stereotypes, like how black people like to down on the black people, how we kill each other and shit like that for stupid shit, how we all want we all want materialistic bullshit that is never gonna amount to anything and stuff like that. And motherfuckers that live in that Willie Lynch syndrome. For those that don't know about the Willie Lynch syndrome, like how that whole black people, like the dark skinned brothers are better than the light skinned people and vice versa, and all that stupid shit, you know what I mean? And that's what I got from the song Us, that we all black, that we all have to embrace each other, we're all brothers and sisters, stop all that nonsense and let's work together, you know what I mean? And that's what I got from the song Us. Track 20, No Vaseline, pretty brutal track. It's pretty much his diss to NWA, because like I said, he used to be part of NWA. They had a falling out, and he went in. He dissed Dr. Dre. He does Eazy-E especially, talking about how y'all stupid for signing the contract with Ruthless Records, how y'all can't get out of this contract and stuff like that. He goes after MC Ren as well, DJ Yellow, like pretty much the whole NWA, how Jerry Heller is like taking up all their money and shit like that, blah blah blah. It's just, he goes in, and after that NWA never went after Ice Cube and shit like that, because before they was dissing Ice Cube when the song was like 100 miles of running and shit like that, and that was Ice Cube's answer to that song and stuff like that. So it was very brutal, and after that NWA broke up and they went solo and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool. And the bonus track is track 21, How to Survive in South Central. That song is actually featured on the Boys in the Hood soundtrack. It's self-explanatory. It's pretty much how to survive in South Central. Like, for example, he says the line where he says like, don't point when you get stopped by the cops, don't put the gun in the glove compartment. That's like one of the first places they're gonna find and shit like that. Find in a place where you can't find the gun and shit, like where they can't find a gun, blah blah blah. What not to do, just be on your toes and shit when you're in the hood and shit like that. And that applies everywhere, you know what I mean? How to survive in the hood, not just South Central, but in the hood. And that's what I got from this song. And that's it. That's Ice Cube's Death Certificate, released in 1991. For those that are friends of Ice Cube, angry Ice Cube like I am, you would definitely enjoy this album. That's it, and stay tuned for more. I might do another hip hop album review today, I'm not sure, but stay tuned for more. Peace.